Just when you think it just can't get any worse for this New Jersey Devils team, they find new and improved ways to embarrass themselves and this entire fan base. Let's dive into it. I'm really running out of words to describe how I feel about not only this season for the Devils, but I think since 23-24, and even to some extent prior to 22-23. Um, but the words I do have is, what is going on, Devils fans? Happy Monday. As always, it's your host, your best friend, your confidant, and your number one source, Neil Villapiano, and welcome to another edition of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, right here on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as Sports Wire Radio, the best place to get everything you need to know about your utterly embarrassing, disappointing, aggravating, frustrating, numbing New Jersey Devils. And despite the Devils' play and everything that's going on, I hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you're checking out this episode. And thank you guys, as always, for your continued support of the podcast, whether watching here on YouTube, listening on your audio platforms, interacting with me on social media, talking to me in person. Just as always, I really do appreciate it, guys, because you guys are the driving force to why I continue to do this, even during the very difficult times. And if you've been a fan of this podcast and have been with me for especially the first couple of seasons, probably seasons 1 to 3, this is nothing new that we are in right now in terms of the realities of this Devils team. Um, and you know where I'm going to go with all of this, but we're going to dive into it in just a moment. And as always, make sure to leave a like on this video here on YouTube if you haven't already, and hit that subscribe button as well. Just reached over 175 subscribers here on YouTube. Really do appreciate it. Let's get to 200 by the end of January. Would really, really appreciate that. Shout out to DraftKings Sportsbook. When you bet $5 using our promo code THPN at sign up and your bet hits, you get $300 instantly in risk-free bet money. And if you want to bet against the Devils to lose tonight in the Hughes Bowl against the Minnesota Wild, I'd highly recommend doing that because I think it's very likely we're going to end up losing that game. We might lose pretty badly tonight. We shall see how that all goes down. But also with the NFL playoffs underway, just finishing up wild card weekend, divisional round will be starting at the end of this week. DraftKings, best place to get in on all the huge cash prizes. So again, sign up with our promo code THPN, bet $5 on your first bet, and if it hits, you get $300 instantly in risk-free bet money. Okay. So really the question that I asked myself before I jumped on here was, where do I begin, right? Where do I begin with this episode? Because if you were here last week when we spoke to Jim Berenger of Full Press Hockey, which I highly recommend you listen to that episode because Jim is so good at just being honest and telling us exactly what we need to hear and understand when it comes to this New Jersey Devils team and everything like that. If you haven't yet, please go check out that episode and listen to it or watch it. It's a good one because I think it pretty much encapsulates what's going on and what's been going on for years with this Devils team. But let's try to quickly recap what this past week was for the New Jersey Devils. And I think that it's fair to say that this was one of, if the not most embarrassing stretch of hockey that this fan base and organization has experienced probably in its history, at least since the early 80s when this Devils team first came into existence. And we're going to start, we have to, unfortunately, we're going to start with the game on Tuesday night on Long Island against the New York Islanders. I was actually in attendance for this one. It was my first ever time at UBS Arena, which I will say, phenomenal arena. I mean, just everything, the way it's set up, the acknowledgement of the great Islander players that have been there before, their wall of fame. I thought the food selection was excellent. I thought the food quality was excellent, right? Um, and was I expecting the Devils to win? I'd be lying to you if I said no. But what ended up happening was much worse than I think any of us could have imagined, as you already know by this point. But the Devils got their ass handed to them. As the new kids say nowadays, they got belt to ass in this one, 9-0 on national television, mind you. This was an ESPN Plus game. Um, Steve Levy, and former New Jersey Devil, and certainly one of the biggest supporters of this Devils franchise from a player standpoint or a former player standpoint, PK Subban, were on the call. Subban got a nice little gift from a Devils fan who decided at some point during the game to throw a PK Subban Devils jersey onto the ice. Keep in mind, this was not a home game. This was an away game. This guy, whoever he is out there, and I'm not going to, try to figure out who it was, threw their jersey on the ice. I've seen that before from other fan bases, looking at Toronto specifically, but I never thought that I would see a Devils fan do that. And I think that pretty much shows you just how bad and how down bad we are as a fan base. You went into this game after the debacle that was the 3-1 loss at home to the Carolina Hurricanes, in which Luke Hughes was booed for more than half the game. Boogate, it basically became. It was a national story. And you had several guys, including Nico Hischier, standing up for Luke Hughes. You would have thought that would have gotten this team to rally around one another, play with emotion, play with passion, play with heart, come out with a good performance on Long Island. And they found new and improved ways to embarrass themselves. This game was over 90 seconds into it when the Islanders scored first on a Matt Barzal slap shot from the left side. Anthony Duclair had a hat trick and 5 points in this one. Oh, and by the way, the Devils completely outshot and to many extents probably outplayed the Islanders. As you could see, they put up 44 shots. But Ilya Sorokin, in his return from injury, shuts the door, doesn't even give the Devils a chance to even come close to getting back in this one. And Jacob Markstrom, who had been playing fairly well up until that point, was in the game for all 9 goals. And I've been a fair defender of Sheldon Keefe throughout his tenure so far in New Jersey. That was the first time that I genuinely was concerned about if he had lost the locker room or not. Because to decide to let Markstrom basically wear that and be there for all 9 goals and not give him, at least some relief and tell him, you know what, you're done. We're going to put in Jake. I think that kind of shows you where the Devils are right now. I just kept laughing at this game. I was with several friends and we were just laughing. We had a great time. Islander fans are hilarious to be around. They were obviously enjoying our misery, but we also were saying a lot of different things and having a lot of fun up in the 300s. So there was at least something to it. But to be there for 9-0, I think I just felt numb really more than anything afterwards. Wasn't angry. I wasn't pissed off. I wasn't broken. I think I was just numb because In the last 5 or 6 years, this team has found new and improved ways to embarrass itself. And this is just the new low. This was the worst loss in Devils history in terms of just how many goals they lost by. In the era of tracking goals given up in analytics world, this was the worst goaltending performance by a goaltender in the NHL in the entire history of the National Hockey League. And that was Jacob Markstrom. And that was just bad. I don't I don't know how it got that bad. I mean, defensive breakdowns, Jacob Markstrom giving up, honestly, several very soft goals. And just looking at him and Nico Hischier after the game, they and Brendan Dillon too, they were stunned. They were stunned. Jacob Markstrom apologized to the fan base, which, I give him credit for. He had to face the music. Luke Hughes, I'll give credit for. He had to face the music after the loss to Carolina. Nico Hischier said that he expects himself and the team to have a response to that game. The fact that nothing changed, no changes were made the day after that game, everything was business as usual. Sheldon Keefe was coaching practice. Tom Fitzgerald was able to go into the building and continue to try to see if he can somehow unfuck this entire fuck up that he's had. It just shows you where we are as a franchise, especially with the ownership of Josh Harris and David Blitzer. So you go into the next game 48 hours after that shellacking. And in really many ways being the biggest embarrassment of the year. And you go to Pittsburgh and you find another way to get that much further down into the ground as the Devils walked away with another horrible, lifeless, embarrassing performance, losing 4-1 to the Pittsburgh Penguins in this one. Evgeny Malkin returned and, of course, scored. Luke Hughes scored into his own net this time. Scored into the other team's net. Let me clarify that. Scored the only goal for the Devils in this one. And that was it. And, Jake Allen was not at his best. The team in front of him wasn't at its best. And that was that. And it really didn't surprise me in the slightest that the Devils had this kind of response. Because this team is dead. Because this team is broken. They want something to happen. They want someone to go. Whether it's the GM, the coach, players, they want somebody to go. And that is truly where they are. And Sheldon Keefe went about as far as saying that in the post game when he said that he knows what this team needs. This team is craving several things. Sheldon Keefe has been in the league for a while. He knows what this team needs. And the most damning statement that Sheldon Keefe gave, which was, I think, honestly, a direct attack at Tom Fitzgerald, was, we have a lot of work to do to become a real hockey team. My God. My God. That is so bad. And I'm not criticizing Keefe for saying that, because Keith has been nothing but honest. That's why I liked the hire in the first place, because I knew he would be blunt. I knew he would tell us what needed to be said and what we needed to hear. And I just think that at this point, the team understands that they've fallen apart again. The GM can't do much of anything right now. There's no indication that any changes are coming. And the team's just going to have to go through the emotions. This reminds me so much of the New York Yankees. And people might say, well, Neil, the Yankees make the playoffs every year. The Yankees at least can get pretty far in the playoffs. They went to the World Series over a year ago. The Yankees haven't won anything in almost 2 decades. Why is that? Because of 3 people. Aaron Boone, who's a puppet. Cashman, who is also a puppet and will do whatever the owner says. And Hal Steinbrenner, who said years ago that he didn't even want to be the owner. He didn't want to. And they follow such an analytic approach that has no emotion that they just go out there and continue to do the same thing, expecting somehow the results are going to change. And they go, well, the analytics are saying that we're good, so why aren't we? Because you don't know what you're doing. Because you are a lifeless team. Nobody's intimidated by the New York Yankees anymore. They just keep doing this every year, and we just keep saying, oh, well, shoot, we got to get more talent in here. We got to just spend more money. It's not that. All 3 of those men have to go. And until all 3 of them go, this is what's going to happen. And that's the honest truth. Unless the Yankees get stupidly lucky in the playoffs. Stupidly lucky. The New Jersey Devils have been very content with being irrelevant. Have been very content with being from mediocre to just plain bad. More often than not, plain bad. And if you don't believe me, just look at what the ownership's message has been through this entire situation. Nothing. No response. No speaking to the media. No message. No nothing. Nobody's gotten fired. Nothing. That's all we've gotten. So that's really where we are right now. And I want to be more pissed off. I want to yell and scream. But what's the point? Nothing's changing. And from everything that we've seen from national media reporters, from Pierre LeBrun to Elliot Friedman to Darren Dreger, there's no sign that anything's going to change dramatically. So, the more that things change, whatever change they think is being made, the more that they stay the same. I've said that before, and I'll continue to say it. But there's only one thing that has not changed. There's only one thing that has not changed that is still helping many of my listeners and viewers, and that is my friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. The jaw-dropping moments that make hockey, hockey. Experience them all with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. And this is for all listeners. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live also in the Show Me State of Missouri. Shout out Missouri. New customers all around the United States. This one's for you. You bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you sign up with our promo code THPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. So let's get to the true elephant in the room because we have to talk about it. On Saturday, right as Devils practice began, we saw that Dougie Hamilton, who has been criticized heavily for his lack of production and getting paid $9 million per year for the next couple of more seasons, was on the fourth defensive pairing with Colton White, and it was confirmed after practice that Dougie Hamilton would be a healthy scratch for the Devils game against the Winnipeg Jets. And that also confirms to me that Dougie Hamilton's time in New Jersey is very much coming to a very, very ugly end. And I'm not, and I will never criticize a player for using their right to not waive their no trade or no move clause if they don't want to. I put all of the blame of that on Tom Fitzgerald because he gave Dougie Hamilton that. He gave him that. One thing I will say, though, is that anybody who is representing Dougie Hamilton or Dougie Hamilton himself who's upset about quote unquote being targeted for this is a bit ridiculous because what has Dougie Hamilton done this year, or better yet, even in the last month, that gives you any sort of an idea that Dougie's earned the right to stay in the lineup? It's not like the team is dramatically different when Dougie Hamilton isn't playing. I also want to give Dougie Hamilton some props for sticking his ground with this no trade, no move clause and being very clear about it. I also will say that since Dougie hurt his pec and had surgery, he's never been the same. And that's an injury that NHL players very much struggle to be productive after getting it. So it doesn't surprise me that Dougie's production has dropped. But what also throws me off is why are we making Dougie Hamilton into much more of a defensive defenseman when we know damn well he's not? He just isn't. He just isn't. Forcing players to be what they aren't is going to hurt your team. That's just plain and simple. And so this is a whole mess. The Devils have become a national mess. They're the most talked about team in the league right now, and for no good reason. None. I've seen national pundits all over the country and also in Canada talking about this team. From the Steve Dangle podcast to Daily Face Off to the Tri-State Area podcast to all that, everybody is talking about the New Jersey Devils in a very negative way and for good reason. Now, here is how things get even messier. Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic, also at TSN, he tweeted this out on Saturday afternoon after practice and after we had learned that Dougie was a healthy scratch. Pierre tweeted this: reached out to Dougie Hamilton's agent, JP Barry. His response, quote, Dougie was informed today that he will not be playing now that Jonathan Kovacevic is back in the lineup. By the way, the Devils have found a way to get Jonathan Kovacevic back in the lineup because Zach McEwen is out for the year with an injury. And Stefan Nason now is out long-term after getting surgery on his knee. may explain why he's had such a terrible season. Maybe only explains a little bit. But now they have somehow enough cap space to put on LTIR to allow Jonathan Kovacevic and Evgeny Dodonov to come back on the roster. So Tom Fitzgerald got away with it, despite everything looking like he wasn't going to find a way. Anyway, in our view, this decision is all about business rather than his game right now. Singling him out seems very calculated at this stage. Dougie has a 10-team trade list, and there have been efforts to trade him going back to the draft last year. That's how long Dougie has been trying to be. That's how long Fitzgerald has tried to move Dougie's contract. We have made it clear to the Devils that we will consider teams outside our list and other creative ways to get a team that is mutually acceptable. So Hamilton Camp will be flexible beyond a 10-team list if it means finding a suitable team in a trade. It gets worse. Tom Fitzgerald finally spoke, sort of. He's been dodging the local media for months now, according to Ryan Novozinski of NJ.com, James Nichols of New Jersey Hockey Now. They have not gotten a word out of Tom Fitzgerald. But the moment that a national reporter and Pierre LeBrun reaches out, Fitzgerald just decides he's going to speak. Reached out to Devils GM Tom Fitzgerald in the wake of JP Barry's comments. This is from Pierre LeBrun. Fitzgerald, quote, "As you know, we just put Shimon Nemec back in the lineup on Thursday," which is true. "He's a young guy who we want getting his game back, where he had been easily our best defenseman before his injury. Pesci's play speaks for itself. He isn't going anywhere. Kovacevic coming back gives our roster a spark we are looking for, and he was our best defensive defenseman all of last year. And that's what we want with our lineup. This is simply Dougie being the odd man out with where our right side is fully healthy for the first time all year. This is business of our lineup." Tom Fitzgerald is so unbelievably full of shit. I get it. He may not feel comfortable speaking the honest truth, although I think at this point he needs to. I get it that Dougie Hamilton hasn't earned the right to consistently be in the lineup because of his poor play. But to come out and say that this was strictly because of his play and the lineup is ridiculous. We know why Dougie Hamilton is not playing. We're not idiots. Dougie Hamilton is being put as a healthy scratch for one reason only: to force his hand and to force him to waive his no trade clause to somebody so that he can be traded and that the Devils could get a bunch of cap relief. This is a horrible, horrible position the New Jersey Devils are in. They have no culture, they have no standards, and they have no emotion. And it's crazy to think about where we were 3 years ago to now. This organization continues to embarrass itself on and off the ice. And this whole situation with Dougie Hamilton just confirms that. I will always be appreciative of Dougie Hamilton for choosing New Jersey in free agency, helping New Jersey to an extent become somewhat of a destination place. And he was great for the first couple of years that he was here. But injuries, unfortunately, have derailed him to an extent. And maybe if he goes somewhere else, he finds new life, starts playing better, and it's all good for him. But it's time. Him and Andre Palat, which somehow Andre Palat has still not been asked to waive his. I don't get that. Andre Palat's been worse than Dougie Hamilton. By far. There's no question. Yet Dougie is the only one that gets singled out. This would be different if both of those guys were healthy scratches. And they both should be. It wouldn't surprise me either, by the way, if Dougie Hamilton is in the lineup tonight against Minnesota. Because Sheldon Keefe had already said that he's not so sure that Kovacevic, who played yesterday against Winnipeg, may play both games of the back-to-back. Maybe they'll just stick Colton White in there instead. I don't know. But that's where we are right now, ladies and gentlemen. That's where the New Jersey Devils are right now. So, where do we go from here? I think now it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when Dougie Hamilton gets traded. Now, there was a report that came out that Dougie Hamilton was going to be traded to the San Jose Sharks this past offseason, and he vetoed the trade. I wonder now if his feelings on that change. Maybe they don't. It's a high-tax state. But obviously a team that has a much better shot of making the playoffs, been one of the bigger surprises of the season, has a Hart Trophy candidate, Macklin Celebrini. They're an up-and-coming team. So it's possible. But again, it's going to have to be based around if Dougie and his team feel like that this is where they want to go. Now, as of about an hour ago, Jimmy Murphy, an analyst, he reported that there are currently 6 teams in the NHL monitoring Dougie Hamilton and his situation. It's the Anaheim Ducks, the Toronto Maple Leafs, what a shock. The Vegas Golden Knights, again, what a shock. The Detroit Red Wings, the Utah Mammoth, and the San Jose Sharks. Now, Murphy went a step further and said that of those 6 teams, the Maple Leafs, the Mammoth, and the Sharks are believed to be the most interested. So it's clear that there's still a belief around some part of the league that Dougie Hamilton could still be a productive player. And I think if he's in the right situation, I think he can produce. It just isn't going to happen in New Jersey anymore. This team is broken. This system that Fitzgerald is continuously trying to force down this team is not working. Which, by the way, CJ Turturro today literally said that people in the league have spoken to him about the fact that the system that the Devils play is not because of Sheldon Keefe. It's because Tom Fitzgerald wants them to play a certain way and told Sheldon Keefe to coach them that way. His hands are tied, Sheldon Keefe's. What a shock. What a shock. So, we will see. Again, I think it's very likely that Dougie Hamilton has played his last game in New Jersey in that game against Pittsburgh last week. I will talk more about it when it happens. This is a very sad way to go out. It is a business, and this needs to be done. But this could have been handled so much better. So much better. And I guess Tom Fitzgerald wants to be like Chris Drury last year with the Rangers. And I wanted Tom Fitzgerald to grow some balls and be more of an asshole. I just think that this should have been done back in the offseason. There should have been more of an emphasis. I know that Fitzgerald tried, but I think there needed to be more of an emphasis on everything. So, yeah. That's where we are with Dougie Hamilton. That's where we are with Tom Fitzgerald. I'll just quickly, honestly, guys, I'll just quickly recap the game against Winnipeg, because I will say at least this was probably the most competitive the team has looked in a while. They scored 3 goals. Let's start with that. Nico Hischier got a goal. Cody Glass scored twice. Siegenthaler had scored, but it was waved off due to goalie interference on Paul Cotter. It was ticky-tacky, but it was called nonetheless. They were tied at 3 going into the third, and they got dominated in the third period. Tanner Pearson scored, made it 4-3. Devils couldn't get a shot on goal until like 5 minutes to go in the game. Had a couple shots at the end, but couldn't get it past Hellebuck. The Jets, who had lost 11 of their last 12, and thank God their losing streak had ended prior to this game, but had lost 11 of their last 12 and are in dead last in the NHL, beat the New Jersey Devils. Once again, I will reiterate, what a shock. Should also mention, by the way, kind of staying on Tom Fitzgerald, someone who's been on the podcast before, a good friend of ours, JP Gambatese, tweeted this out this morning. On 32 Thoughts, Elliot Friedman noted that the expectation is that the Devils' season ends before they take an internal look at Tom Fitzgerald's job. I'll be so honest with you guys. If any change happens prior to their next home game, which will be against the Kraken on the 14th, it will be Sheldon Keefe being fired. And there will be hell to pay because this is not Sheldon Keefe's fault. He is the coach, and maybe he has lost the locker room. But with everything we know, it's very obvious that he is being controlled by a GM who does not know what he's doing and is incompetent. So the Devils, as of January 12th, 2026, for the first time since losing to the Hurricanes on opening night, are below 500. They are 2-7-1 in their last 10 and are 6-14-1 in their last 21 games. That 8-game winning streak seems like a lifetime ago. And once again, Tom Fitzgerald's issues came to the forefront. And it wasn't just because of injuries. We have no depth. We have no leadership in many ways. This team needs a full culture shock. They need a retool, not a rebuild, but a retool. But I will say this. You need to take a good, long look, hard look at this core. I'm just going to say that. And that's what Jim Behringer said last week, and I will reiterate that. So, lastly here, let's quickly take a look at what this upcoming week has in store for us. So, yes, again, tonight, the Devils are in Minnesota, second half of a back-to-back. It is the Hughes Bowl, first and only one we're getting this year. It's Quinn Hughes and the Wild, host Jack Hughes, Luke Hughes, and the Devils. And this is going to be interesting. Only 2 more games after that. Devils are at home against Seattle on the 14th. And then Saturday the 17th, the Devils will be at home once again. About what? 13 days later against the Carolina Hurricanes again at home. I don't know what's going to happen by the time we get to Wednesday. But if any of you are going, I would recommend not. I know that, you stick by your team no matter what. But the only statement that this fan base can make right now is by not showing up, is by showing their displeasure and their anger and everything with this team right now by not showing up. I don't know if or when the next time I will be at a game. Maybe it'll be the season finale or the home finale. I don't know. The Devils they're only 6 points out of a playoff spot, but it feels like 26 points out right now. So we shall see. That's going to pretty much do it for this episode of the Devil State of Mind podcast. Thank you guys, as always, for your support. Really do appreciate it. Hit that like button if you like what you see on YouTube. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already. Tell all your friends to do the same. Also, hit that notification bell so you get notified every time a new episode or new 3 things to watch video, if I continue to do that, I may not, comes up on the channel. Subscribe to the podcast on all audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, Google, all that good stuff. Also, give me a 5-star rating on either Apple or Spotify. Really helps the podcast continue to grow and get it out to more Devils fans like yourself. Follow the podcast on social media, Devil State of Mind on both Facebook and Instagram, Devil State over on Twitter. Follow the podcast on TikTok. It's just my name, Neil.Villapiano. Also, follow me on BlueSky as well, Neil Villapiano, for updates with the podcast and the Devils and all that good stuff. But that'll do it for this episode. Thank you guys, as always, for checking it out, and we will see you next week or sooner if something happens in the next episode. Everyone, continue to be the awesome people that you are. And even though we are down so bad right now, you already know that you got to put those horns up, baby. No matter what, let's go Devils.